In this video, we're changing the door lock module on a VW Polo 9N. Common fault with them, they give loads of problems. Sometimes they lock and won't unlock and do all sorts of problems. So here's my particular situation. You can just see that the lock is totally unresponsive, whereas the other one works fine. So we're going to replace this faulty door module. First thing you've got to do is take off this little door handle piece. It just pulls off. Behind there's some torque screws which you've got to undo. Also take off this winder handle. Now it just slips down. There's a collar around it, that little round collar which just slips towards the top of the winder. Here we go, we're undoing that. 2 screws in this door handle. Nice, easy, simple stuff. But remember to put these things away because you're going to need them later on. One's longer than the other, so pay attention to how it's being removed. And then it's just going to be about popping the clips that hold the door onto the actual, hold the door panel onto the actual door itself. Just pull them off. Use one of them trim removal tools. I'll put a link in the description where you can get that from. Go to my website and buy it. Support the site, support the channel. Yeah, just pop off that door panel and it comes off with a few clips around the edges. This is a little bit tedious, this job, but it's so common it just has to be done. Now once you got it off, all the clips are done, you just got to just raise it up, lift it towards the sky and it will pop off. Now behind there is the door handle clip, which I didn't get to show. You just got to undo it. It's really easy. It just actually just unhooks off. Now we have to separate the window from the motor or the winder itself. So you got to open up this little compartment here, and inside you're going to see those 2 white little C-clips in there. They're like little locking lugs which hold the window to the winder itself. It's pretty simple, but it's a little bit awkward. Now the way I did it, I'd got a screwdriver and I just banged it and knocked it through. Now the clips will drop into the door themselves, so you just have to pick them up later. Remove the 10mm nuts around the edge of that unit there, that casing. Very complicated for what it is, but it works. It's functional. And the next thing I did was undid the lock bar that attaches to the lock button. Just pop that off, get it off. Make sure not to break anything because you've got to put it all back. So here I'm just releasing this kind of, I don't know what you call it, this casing away from the door lock module itself, so it's not hindered by these cables. So I'm just pushing these grommets through so it's got a bit more movement because you're going to need to wiggle it. It's just an awkward, tricky job, but I'm trying my best to explain it and give you as much clarity as possible on it. So here you can see I've retrieved those lug nuts that held in the window to the mechanism. And it's just putting it back and just holding the casing there while I relieve the rest of the parts of the door module, because there's a lot of things attached to it. It's a little bit complicated, but it's very doable. So we're trying to remove this rubber grommet. This rubber grommet hides the screw which holds onto the actual door lock blank, if that makes sense. It's going to be clear in a minute. You just carry on watching. So I believe you need a size Torx 15 for this, and you got to be quite careful with this because you don't want to totally remove it. You just want to undo it loose enough so that this locking blank pops out, because you can overextend it and it'll come all the way out and you'll just have problems forever. So you just want to loosen it enough that it removes. So this is the door module cable, the release cable. You got to release that out of the handle. I'm just push that through. And we've got some spline, 12-point spline tool, which we're going to use just to remove the actual locating screws for the module. Now everything's freed up, we can actually take it apart a little bit easier. So remove that, drop it down, give yourself a bit of space, and just ease out the module. Now it's going to be attached to the loom, the wiring loom, the electric loom, so you're going to have to just remove this plastic casing so you can get full access to undoing the plug on the bottom of it. There you go. And we're just going to unclip that plug at the bottom. Seems nice and easy. It is not too bad, but it is a little bit tricky. It's just fiddly. It's just a fiddly job, but you'll be able to do it if you follow these simple instructions. And here's the door module itself. Now you have the door module off, it's time to strip it and just take off the bits and pieces off it. Now just take your time once again, because they're plastic, and you can learn off of this module so you don't make a mistake on your next one. Don't forget guys, you can go to www.bmacvags.com to get all the parts that you see in this video, all the replacement parts, repair parts that you need for your vehicle. So go and check out my website. It supports the channel, and you can click on the link on the description with all the information about the parts in this particular video also as well. So don't forget to check out my website. With the module in hand, it's time to strip it down. So we need to strip the release cable. That just pops off. A better screwdriver that come off easier and unhooks. You can see there, just unhooks. Put that to the side along with the lock rod. And now this is a great time to compare your new part with your old part. Just take your time and make sure everything's the same, so when it goes back it fits right, because you don't want to have the wrong side. So you just take your time, do your due diligence and check that it's all the same, it's going to align all right, because if it's the wrong type of mechanism, it's just common sense what kind of situation you're going to be in. So just check it out, make sure it's all good, and go on to the next. So we're going to continue stripping down and just taking the stuff from one module to put onto the next. Start off with the release cable that just pops off. You just got to find the sweet spot and it'll pop off. You actually don't even need those pliers. It's really easy. And just put that back on. I like to do it as I like to replace it as I remove it. It just saves having to work anything out later. That's just my methodical way of doing it. It may not suit you. It may whatever. But yeah, just put it all back together. Now this has got a pop rivet in it. Funny enough, it actually broke that white piece, but it's not super detrimental. I ended up drilling out the pop rivet, but it was already broken. I was just trying to save it. So it's not super necessary, but I don't want to encourage you to not put on parts that are there. But if you're in the same situation like me, just do the best you can. Don't stress yourself, because everything else actually holds it in nice, tight and snug. See me doing it. Just make do with what you can with situations like this. Like I said, it's not a detrimental part. Once you've done that, we're fitting on back the rods. Now it's probably best to fit these on later, but this is trial and error. Sometimes you don't know the best way to do things, so learn off my mistakes. So we're putting in the release cable. This is with the internal release cable, and that just clips in nicely, and you can see it's all good. Brand new unit there. So let's just test and make sure it's all working properly manually. So I use the screwdriver to lock the locking mechanism, and then the cable just to pull, just to make sure it's releasing correctly. Because you don't want to go through all the hassle of installing it and it doesn't work. So now we're putting on this plastic shroud surround back on. Quite brittle these are. The clips break really easy. So just make sure you're quite tender with it, because you know it's probably been in there since the age of the car. So just take your time with it and put it back together. So here we're back at the door panel, the internal door panel, and we're just releasing that little nut that I use just to hold it there. There's no other reason. I just use it just to locate it there. Now I'm refitting the lock arms back in situ, and I just found this to be the easiest way to do it. I know it looks a bit janky, but it just gives you the flexibility. If you put the module in first, it's really difficult to get the rods in, I found anyway. But listen, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm just showing you the way I did it, and you can learn off my mistakes. So the module's been located, and I just hand tighten the screws in there and come back with the impact and give it a couple of squirts just to snug it up. So we're back to putting on the door panel, and it's just basically the reverse of removal. That magnetic tray with all the nuts in it is a godsend. It just keeps everything in one place. Once you've done that, you locate them all back where they're meant to go. And this locking mechanism, I wasn't sure how to do it, so I just ended up removing it in the end, because it saved a lot less, saved the bending and twisting, and it was easy enough. As you can see, we're just fitting back the grommets of the door. Really simple. Try not to rip it, so be gentle with it. And we're slowly putting everything back together, snugging up them nuts around that panel itself. Quick and easy. I went over it twice, I think. More rubber grommets location. Like I said, it's not a particularly tough job, it's just a little bit tricky, and you can get stumped on a couple little bits and pieces. So we're putting it back together, and it's just a matter of hooking it into the lock-in rod arm, and it clips in. I found that the easiest way to do it rather than bending it up. I'm just giving it a quick test to make sure everything's working, because you, like I said before, you don't want to put the car all together and it doesn't, and it fails. So now we're trying to reinstall that locator plug. You put it in, and I just used a long screw just to knock it in, and fortunately it went in. As you can see, it's in there all nice and snug, holding that window the way it's supposed to. See, tried my best to get you a good shot of it. Bit tricky, but you know, it is what it is. So we're just fitting everything back together. Remember to put this release cable, the external release cable, don't pull on this. Just put it where it naturally goes, because if you pull on it, you'll tension it too much and it will malfunction. So just get it where it goes naturally without pulling, and then just make sure it's secure it with a flat screwdriver. And we're putting the lock blank in, and that just slips in. And get your Torx and tighten it up. Not too tight. This is really soft stuff. It doesn't need over tightening. It just needs to be snugged. Quick test of the door, making sure everything's still working. Very important. Door panel going back on. Make sure you hook it over that little top plastic. Once you get it down, make sure the clips are all located in the place they're meant to be. Couple of slaps will do it. You'll hear it click anyway. Really good. All nice and tidy. Anything that's not quite holding, help it out. One of them clips was messing about, being a bit stubborn, and I'm just having a feel around to make sure it's all right. We're going in with the window winder and checking the function of that. Looks all good. We're happy with that. Putting these screws back in. The long one goes at the bottom and the shorter one at the top. Get yourself one of them simple impact screwdrivers. They're just so handy. And don't forget the rubber grommet on the end there. How's that looking now? Clip the handle on. Simple clip. Give it a little squeeze. Once again, testing the window, testing everything. Test so you don't have to have problems with it. And here you can see the locks are working perfectly. Lock in, jumping up and down the way it's supposed to. And it's a job well done. Just raising it up because it looked like it was a bit too low. Yeah, you can see closer, working as it should. Absolutely excellent. Job well done. Guys, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for more videos. Thank you for watching.